You guys, it's been so long. I love you
Yeah.
all so much. I love to see your faces and I love to
Hey,
hear your voices and I love to talk to you.
I love you, man.
And, love is just such a wonderful thing, isn't it?
It's
Don't we
great.
all just love? And, on the last episode, Niall talked about the idea of what's the worst Best Picture winner. And at first, he had the idea of all of us creating the perfect worst Best Picture winner. And since we're talking about rom coms this week, I thought it would be fun for three white dudes who haven't seen that many rom coms to
Hmm.
create the perfect rom com based off of our vast and infinite knowledge that we have of rom coms.
I
What do you
love
guys
it.
say? Should we do it?
I
Yeah,
love it.
I
Okay.
think I think we're more than qualified.
I
Yeah.
agree. I think we'll just go around and maybe Niall will choose the director. Jared could choose the main female star, and I can choose the main male star, and we'll just go around. Maybe the writer, maybe the producer, maybe the studio, stuff like that, and then we'll start to formulate a general plot idea, and even come up with a title at the end of it all, based off of the silly shenanigans that we get up to, based off this cool and good idea that I just had based on Niall's idea from last week.
Love it.
Excellent.
Okay, so Jared, who's going to be the female, the main lead, the love interest or the main character?
Yeah, it's gonna be Reese Witherspoon.
Reese Witherspoon.
That's a
And
good
is
pick.
this current age Reese Witherspoon? Are we throwing it back to 90s and that's when it was made, or is this a modern
No,
story of a
today.
Today? All right, cool.
Yep.
So we got Reese Witherspoon, and we were talking about this earlier before we started recording, but I'm gonna cast Paul Rudd as the main actor.
I love Paul
Okay.
Rudd.
And
Don't
I
let
think Paul
anyone
Rudd
tell you otherwise.
I think Paul Rudd and Reese Witherspoon in a rom com where they're a little bit older, they're in their 40s, 50s, that could be pretty interesting. There's not a lot of those types of rom coms. Could be good. Niall, who's directing this movie?
I had to look up a list of romantic comedy directors just to make sure that I wasn't missing someone great. And man, this website has so many pop-ups. I can see one tiny window of the page
You're
Is
trying
that-
to
because
does
it's
that
just
window have
popping up
a
like
name on it?
crazy. But
Yeah.
I think
It just says Steven
who-
Spielberg.
who I'm gonna go with, maybe not a huge name, but directed an excellent movie and knows how to direct Reese Witherspoon very well. Robert Luketic, who directed
Of
Legally
course.
Blonde.
Of course. Yeah,
Let's just
those,
bring him back. That vibe of Legally Blonde is just perfect, and
Oh, yeah.
that's
So
what I'm going
funny.
for with this one.
I actually really like those Legally Blonde movies.
Legally
a lot,
Blonde is so good.
It's fun. It's a really fun movie, and also the sequel I thought was fun and good too.
Never saw. it.
So Jared, what's the first initial plot element of this movie? Where are we going with this? Paul
Yeah.
Rudd / Reese Witherspoon,
We are in the big city, the Big Apple, New York.
New
Excellent.
York.
Reese
Perfect.
Witherspoon is far into her career. She's very successful, but she's alone. We
Oh.
find her getting ready for work, taking care of her cat. The cat kind of bobbing its head like this.
Sure.
And yeah, she's realizing something's missing in her life. Maybe she's on the phone with her best girlfriend, and she's like, "Girl, you got to get back out there. It's been so long." And that's kind of where we start with her.
And what is her career?
She's she's a lawyer. She's a very successful corporate lawyer.
Okay.
I was gonna. Lawyer is a great idea, but if we want to diverge just a little bit more from
From Legally Blonde.
from Legally Blonde, what if she was a textiles manufacturer corporate leader? Wouldn't that be pretty interesting for a rom-com protagonist?
Textiles
to have that job?
manufacturer. Yeah, that
Yeah, she's
sounds
like-
very
she's like this-
interesting.
She's the CFO of a textiles corporation. They manufacture boxes and plastics, cardboard. I think that might be interesting because maybe she's so bored with her life, but
Okay.
she makes so much money in the Big Apple, the big city, New York City.
Here's what I'm
Somebody
thinking.
that
though.
never sleeps.
Corporate lawyer, okay? Connecting
The
to what
The city
Jared
that
said
never
with
stops
the
manufacturing
corporate
textiles.
corporate lawyer, but say she doesn't like the jobs that she keeps getting because she keeps getting hooked up with super boring cases.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
With the textiles company that Paul Rudd's character works for.
Yep. That sounds
something
great.
All the
like that,
men
right?
she works with are very, misogynistic and very traditional in that corporate lawyer fashion. But Paul Rudd, he's different.
He's different.
He has
So
a bit more of a feminine side.
But is he
as
the
Paul
opposing?
Rudd does.
Is he the opposing counsel? So are we gonna make it like a lawyer v. lawyer / lawyer love story?
I was going to say something like that, but I almost like, what if she's representing him and that's part of the conflict of interest?
Interesting.
Is that, first of all, he's a dumb guy who's been maybe convicted of, like, or accused of, say, embezzlement or something
child
like
labor.
that. And she is defending him. She realizes, oh, he didn't do this, but despite the supposed evidence that's stacked against him. So he's kind of this bumbling idiot, but good guy at heart, and he didn't do this. And she has to defend him while also making it seem like she's not in love with him, because that would be a conflict of interest. But she's the only lawyer who can actually get him through it.
Solve the case.
Yeah, because
only one.
she is also a fashion designer, and she understands the textiles industry.
Interesting.
Front to back.
She's so successful as a lawyer, but her true passion, her true drive is that she wants to
fashion
be a
Etsy
fashion
shop.
designer. Interesting. Which she's just barely started. Well, no, she's had it for years, but she just doesn't put as much time and care and energy into it as she would like to. And so as a result of that, it's never really taken off. But Paul Rudd is the type of guy who's trying to encourage her to get back into it. He's like, yeah, so what if you're successful? Money doesn't mean everything. You should follow your dream. And she's like, you know what? That's right. But also I have to defend you. And so, I don't know. This sounds like a pretty freaking great rom-com to me. I think we have it almost figured out. So,
well, almost every rom-com has a shaky point.
Shaky point, yeah, of course.
It's,
of course.
Right before the big ending, it all starts going south.
Yep.
Is there something that shakes this relationship up?
What if Paul Rudd did do it? He is at fault, and she trusted him, and so she figures out that he did it, and she's like, "Oh, now I'm defending him." But then it turns out that the evidence was fake, and it was fraudulent from the person who are accusing the textiles manufacturer. And then she realizes she can trust him, and she can love him because he was an honest, nice guy all along.
I like it.
That's
I also feel like rom-coms like this kind of need a villain.
Yeah.
Let's say prosecuting attorney, opposing counsel is Paul Rudd's recent ex-girlfriend.
Ooh.
And so she has a personal vendetta
There's
against
some
Paul
personal
Rudd as well, and
vendetta
that's
as
why
well.
she tries to... You know what the title of this movie could be? Boxed In.
Why?
Why?
Because textiles. Boxes, remember? How we're bringing it back.
See,
to
I
the
was going to
textiles,
say...
and she doesn't...
I was going to
to
say, like, maybe The Law of Love or something like that.
Well, here's the poster, right? The poster is her in a box, and Paul Rudd is... And she's kind of, like, unhappy, and Paul Rudd is, like, standing outside of it with his arms crossed like this, and he's like... I can help you out if you let me.
Listen, man. No, Boxed In's not the one. How about Contempt of Court?
What about
Boxed Out of Love?
A Case of Love?
A Case of Love, yeah.
A Case of Love. What was the first one you said? The Law of Love?
The Law of Love. But I kind of like
that
Contempt of Court.
I like the Contempt of Court.
What about Sleepless in New York City?
I like that.
That's
Lawyer in Manhattan.
What about You've got emails?
You've got emails about
that
this
can and
embezzlement
will be used
case
against you in a court of law.
And it's written. I think it should be written by Reese Witherspoon too. I think she wrote Legally
Powerful.
Blonde.
Did she?
Maybe she did Story.
No, I thought didn't Tina Fey? No, that was Mean Girls.
Mean Girls, yeah.
Never mind.
Maybe she didn't write it. Tina Fey would be a great choice too.
Yeah, let's have Tina Fey write it.
All right, Tina
Yeah,
Fey.
sure.
Sorry,
Let's get her in
sorry,
here.
Reese. We still want you for the actress, but
She produced. She's an executive producer.
yeah,
on
she'll
it.
be. Yep, she'll executive produce it along with Tina Fey, who is also the writer. So yeah, I think we've got it boxed in.
It's based on a novel, Legally Blonde is in it, and the screenplay was written by Karen McCullough Lutz and Kirsten Smith.
Oh,
Yeah,
duh.
so-
And the
that's
book was
right.
written by Amanda Brown.
So yeah, written by
That's
Reese
where we got
Witherspoon.
But so Reese Witherspoon's gonna write this one with Tina Fey.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe I got confused because she was talking about working on the third one and being involved in the story with that.
Maybe
But
she-
that also could be complete dog water.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Who's to say? Not me.
Not me either. I think we've crafted the perfect film, and I can't wait for it to come out. What's the title again? Contempt for Love.
Contempt for Love in Manhattan. Case closed.
Boxed in, boxed out of love.
Boxed in, boxed out of love. The Law of Love.
The Law of
Paul-
Love, the movie with
Paul
Reese
Rudd.
with Paul Rudd. You know what the theme song of that movie could be? Or not the theme song, but the love, like you know how there's always the romantic leitmotif that keeps returning over and over during the film? You know what it could be in this movie? And welcome back. We hope you enjoyed that romantic love music, but now we're going to talk about some more romantic love and some more even romantic comedies. And
That's true.
we talked about this a little bit last time, but I've been kind of watching more romantic comedies recently, and so I thought it might be a little bit of fun to talk to my fellow brothers, my fellow male co-stars of Man Game Movie Night about romantic
Let's talk to
comedies
the
and-
boys about
All
some
right.
rom-coms.
Yeah, it's kind of fun, and I think that rom-coms are great. I have been thoroughly enjoying watching more and more rom-coms. Today I watched Bridesmaids, which I thought was very good. I thought it was very
Nice.
funny.
Never
and
seen
doesn't
that
get
one.
much
Very
more
good.
rom-com than that. And it's awesome. And so what do you guys like about rom-coms? What do you guys... Why did you want to do this episode just as much as I did about romantic comedies?
Yeah, we were begging you, man. We were begging.
It's been a long time coming.
Yep. To be fair,
you
this is
know-
not the first time this topic has been suggested as well, and the first time it was not by me. So
I thought that maybe we'd even done this before.
I thought maybe
In
we
my-
did one.
In my brain,
like,
I thought we did.
Like
In
for
my
a
brain, I thought we
Valentine's
did.
thing.
Yeah.
I
But
don't
now-
think so.
But now we're doing it as an.
Now we're doing it as a whole thing, as its
a-
entire.
We're doing
Beginning
it,
of
but the
July
European
thing.
version.
Yeah, we're doing it the
Oh,
European
we're doing
version,
it just a
and
little
it's-
bit different.
It's in July now, which makes it more
Hey.
topical.
It's
European.
Valentine's Day somewhere.
That's true. That's true. So crack open your whatever.
Your Chardonnay and your rosé.
Yeah, Chardonnay was what I was looking for. But-
Crack open a nice can of bubbly Chardonnay. Yum yum yum.
Crack
And
open
then-
a can of wine.
one can of wine.
a box
Yeah.
of wine.
Okay, for some reason I was thinking we did romantic comedies for a second there too, and I was like, are we just repeating an episode topic? But we haven't. We haven't ever done it. I just
Are
went
you
through all the episodes.
are you certain?
I
Are you
am
sure? Are you
certain.
sure?
You guys can look it up as well. And while you are looking it up,
Yeah, I'm
let me just
scrolling
say,
right
Yeah, I don't see romantic comedies.
Interesting.
Calm.
Maybe
I
it's
feel like
because
I
we're-
remember bringing it up,
I feel like
Love.
I remember you bringing up it as well, but we just had never done
but
it.
we just never did it. Interesting.
And so
All
now
right,
here we
well-
are.
It's good that we
Well.
had this conversation on the podcast.
On the podcast. I think isn't it? I have people message me all the time. It's like, hey, I love when you guys like talk about just the random logistical elements of it. It's very interesting to hear that side of a podcast, you know, which I think is true. Every podcast I listen
Lucas
to,
out
they're
here
like,
sending messages to himself to say that he's getting messages all the time about that.
He's like, yeah, I got a DM from my alt account.
man, I got a DM from Lucas Koford on the Man Game Movie
Humpback
Night
Squirrel Studios.
Yeah, exactly.
Productions.
Productions.
Anyway,
And anyway, I think unless you guys have any real precursing like discussion, I have a question that I could ask you.
I would
think
love
it's a
to
good
hear
question.
the
Well,
question. Oh,
Unless
Well,
Jared has
I'll
more
say
stuff that he
my
wants to say.
general thoughts real
Yeah,
quick
general
on
thoughts.
why I watch romantic comedies, and that is I don't really. For the most part, it's kind of like, and this is going to sound weird, it's like horror movies for me, where I will watch them if people are telling me they're really, really good. And
Yeah.
like, it's a classic, you need to just have seen it, that kind of thing, right? Other than that, I'm not seeking out a good horror. I'm not seeking out a good rom-com. But when presented with one, I typically enjoy it. And
Yeah.
they're feel good and they're fun. And, you know, there's something about that Bachelorette reality TV style, you know, will they, won't they, what's going to happen at the end, and you're rooting for them. And, yeah, I think a good rom-com is sometimes one that either, you know, subverts the expectations and the traditional kind of formula of romantic comedies, and some are good because they nail it. They nail those conventions.
Yeah.
So, those are my thoughts on rom-coms.
I agree.
I like rom-coms because I like both rom and com. I'm interested in both of those topics, and so that's it.
That's it.
For those that are
good.
listening and not watching, my co-hosts are not paying attention to me.
I was paying attention. I just get distracted by your little video that you have playing
also,
in the background. It's just a
for
cat
those-
bobbing his head. It's
yeah.
extremely distracting, but I also love it.
For those listening and not watching, there is a quite distracting video on the TV screen behind me.
It's a man playing bongos with his cat that I assume he's in love with, which is why
Well,
you
that's
have it
not
up
his
there.
cat.
But
What?
it could be in this video, in this
Whose
scenario.
cat is it?
Someone's.
Just someone else's cat just came up and started dancing to this guy playing bongos.
Yeah, he came up. There's no compositing. There's no.
No, it's
green
just
screen.
a
But
cool cat hanging out.
I
watching
like
this guy.
rom-coms. I like I don't know. I think that I personally just I like the ideal nature of a lot of rom-coms of just like,
Yeah,
oh
me
yeah,
too.
that's how, like, it's going to work out because that's how it should work out. And I love that, which is also why the movies that break that I really love, just because it's like, okay, yeah, if they can do do a rom-com with that kind of lack of this is the ideal situation and have it even like maybe go bad, but still kind of give you that same connection to the characters of like hoping that things go well, you know? That's like, I don't know. I think that love is an important thing to most people. And so in a movie where the goal is to make you connect with the characters. If the movie is about love and they do a good enough job at connecting you to the character, then the stakes for the movie become really high. And so I think that's why I like these movies, just because they're like, nobody's trying to save the world generally in these movies, and yet it still feels really important and really high stakes when done well. And I love that feeling, you know?
I do too. I think there's an argument to be made that Transformers is a rom-com.
Absolutely.
Because Transformers 1 at
100%.
least. So in that case, there are really high stakes and the world is in danger.
Yeah.
So I think for Niall, that would be one that I would imagine is one of your favorite rom-coms. Transformers
Totally.
1 from 2005.
Godzilla 2014 as well. Or 2016, 2014. There's a man and a woman that are in love.
Yeah, but isn't that, at least with Transformers 1, Shia LaBeouf, there's some comedic elements around him, around
Oh
the
yeah, and
situation.
there's some rom and there's some com. There's
Exactly.
mostly just rom and demolition in Godzilla 2014,
Yeah.
but I don't
Yeah,
know.
I was going to say, there's not a lot of comedic stuff. Even though Bryan Cranston is in it, he's got some funny stuff.
You know, honestly, now that you bring that up, I'm not a big fan of roms.
Just
romantic
just straight
movies.
romantic.
Yeah.
I agree.
Like, I
agree.
never even thought of that as a category
As a
of movie,
genre. Yeah.
but it totally is.
Of like just romance. I feel like that's a lot of like more Jane Austen type stuff, like Pride and Prejudice. And so that is something that I agree that I am not as big of a fan of. Also partially because I haven't like watched hardly any. Because I feel like just not as much of it, and when it does come around, I'm just more like, yeah.
Well,
not really. Like Bridgerton,
wanna-
for example, that is a
Yeah.
show that I cannot imagine myself really ever watching.
I want to intercept
people
that
love it.
real quick though, Lucas, just
Let's hear
to
it.
clarify. That Jane Austen type stuff, I really love it. I love Pride and Prejudice. I love that stuff. And I would also make a case that there's a lot more calm in there than you think. But it's definitely a different thing. And there are those other movies, like, that movie with that guy and that girl and
With that guy.
the premise of the movie is it's called Me Without You, and like he's in a wheelchair and
Is that
she's
what
like
it's called?
taking care of him or something. Yeah,
With
it's a
Amelia Clark.
Oh
That
no,
one?
it's Me Before You.
Me Before
That's
You,
what it's
that's
called.
what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Me
I've
Without
heard
You
of
is
it. I
a
haven't
band
watched it,
that I like.
Okay, I was
got
like,
mixed
Me
up.
Without You. Yeah,
No,
I've
yeah,
heard of
Me
that.
Before You. And that movie, I haven't seen it, of course, but it just looks like such a slog of just like, okay, romance and that's it. It looks exhausting.
Romance, but there's a little bit of a twist. The guy's in a wheelchair.
The
So
guy's in a
That's
wheelchair.
the plot. That's
You can't
a little
love
bit of-
him.
You can't
So-
love him.
It's I don't know. I haven't seen it. I've heard a lot of people rave about it, but
Yeah,
it's
apparently it's
just
great.
it seems like the kind of movie that I would just hate, you know? And so I'm with Jared on that. That yeah, you need a little bit of at least a little calm in the rom, or else it's just exhausting.
Or just another genre to kind of balance it out. Make
Yeah,
it
like rom horror.
rom horror. Yeah. Man, what even is an example of a rom horror? I don't
It
even know.
Follows.
It Follows. Yeah, I would say that's a pretty good example. It's not. It's definitely more horror than
It's
rom.
more
but there's
horror
a
than
little
rom,
bit of
but yeah.
There's a little bit of that rom in there.
Santa horror with Krampus.
Santa horror with Krampus and with Violent Night. Which
Yeah,
isn't really
which was
horror, but like
bad.
more of a violence. I thought it was fun, but like, yeah, there was
I
plenty in
don't
there.
know. It was a waste, I thought, but that's okay.
With the Austin stuff, I just haven't watched Pride and Prejudice or a lot of those. I've heard they're great. Like, they're very highly reviewed by universally everyone, pretty much everyone. So I would
Yeah.
like to watch more of that stuff, but I just haven't. The thing with rom-coms is it's kind of like a nice, kind of like Jared was saying, it's a nice environment that it creates. It's like, wow, yeah, cool. This is very like comforting, and part of that comes from the fact that you pretty much know that they're going to end up together at the end of it.
Yeah.
And sometimes
It goes down smooth too, you know.
Mhm.
It's just
It
like
does.
okay, I
It's
can
just
just
a very-
watch this and feel good about it, you
Yep,
know.
very easy, palatable watch for sure.
Yeah.
So with that, my question for you all is, what makes a rom-com good? Like, why do you think people even like watching rom-coms in the first place? And then what's like one or two good examples of rom-coms that you just like really liked, and a couple that you really did not like, and that's the reason you don't watch as many?
Yeah, I'll go now before I can't go.
Yeah.
Because of
Understand.
my internet, not because of you guys. You guys are doing great.
Cutting
You're doing
them
great
off.
too, Jared. We love you.
So, I think what makes a good rom-com, this, unlike any other genre, is about the characters, right? You have to care about
Yeah.
the characters.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
have
Oh,
to
for
have,
sure.
great chemistry, and you have to want them to end up together in the end, right? I'm trying to think of examples of bad rom-coms, or like just movies where they don't have great chemistry, and it's just like
It
don't
just feels
really-
forced, and it's
yeah,
like,
it
why
feels
is-
forced. It feels stale. I'm not.
I think one example that for Niall, I don't remember what your opinion was, but Perks of Being a Wallflower, I think, could be defined as a rom-com.
Yeah.
Sure.
And for some people, that just like the teenage angst is a little bit too much. And I
Right.
do agree that like a high school rom-com is not at all the type of rom-com I'm talking about. For the most part, it's not the one that I'm
Right.
seeking out. I'm not like, oh man, High School Musical, my favorite rom-com,
Sure.
where technically there are romantic comedy elements in it. It's clearly, obviously, a musical is in the title, but there's more elements that kind of take away from that, where it's like, okay, yeah, this, like, for example, that I Think You Should Leave sketch with the TC Tuggers. That's kind of like making
Yeah.
fun of that high school drama, kind of like the type of thing that Outer
First
Banks
season
is.
of Riverdale.
Yeah,
Type
exactly.
Vibe of
Where
like,
it's just these guys are kind of in love and they just want to bang, and like, ooh, wow, will they, won't they? But it's not interesting because the characters are just like young and angsty, and that's not really that interesting. Versus one that I just watched that I really like, 500 Days of Summer, where they're fully fledged adults, actual characters. They have great on-screen chemistry, but also there's some tension too, and so I think that is a credit
Gotcha.
to their performances as well. And New
Yeah.
Girl, I think, again, with Zooey Deschanel, is a kind of a rom-com show almost, and it does a really good job of maintaining that kind of genre feeling for a lot of that show as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess as far as good examples, ones that just created really good characters, have great chemistry, like we were just talking about it before, is When Harry Met Sally. I think both
nice.
of those characters
So
are
good.
very likable, very like real and defined. They have their quirks, but they're not super quirky, you know? They just feel like real people. And you want them to be together. You want them to be able to work it out, right? You want them to get over their own flaws and be able to, you know, end up together at the end. And it's really well done, right? And then not only that, but they take that convention of the rom-com and kind of make it a little bit more of like an art piece, right? They have interviews with other couples, like older couples, and yeah, they're scripted and actors. I assuming.
Yeah, it's like the Interstellar thing where they
Yeah.
like the older people documentary stuff.
Yeah, and so it's just like, oh, that's cute,
Right.
and I see where they're going with this, and it just kind of keeps it fresh. So, I mean, I love that's like props my fave rom-com. I think my other fave, because I guess we're talking about that, is Crazy Stupid Love. I've said that on the podcast before.
Of course, yeah.
But
That's a great
very-
one. I do love that one.
A very unique way to tell the story. Very funny. Very likable, real characters, right? Who you want them all to be happy, except for Kevin Bacon.
Which I don't want Kevin Bacon in the real world to be happy.
I think what
That's
makes
not
that
true.
one so good as well is it's like the subversion of expectations type thing where it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, Steve Carell is kind of the main guy who we're following, but also there's the subplot of Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone, and that works really well too. Probably had a lot to do with them getting cast in La La Land together as well, because they do have great on-screen chemistry. That one's not as much of a rom-com, but there are certainly elements of romantic comedy. Again, more of a musical, but
Right.
that one subverts expectations fully in that the guy and the girl, spoiler for La La Land, they don't get together. And that, you know, is sad, and a lot of people hate that decision with La La Land because, like Jared was saying, they really do get connected to these characters and they want them to be together. But at the end of the movie, at the end of the day, they just figure out what was best for us was to follow our dreams independently, and then they both ended up happy, but just not happy because they were together. And
Right.
that's also a great way of kind of looking at it, and, you know, a great love story movie that I kind of associate with this idea, this genre as well.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. I sorted on Letterboxd, like by movies, like romantic comedies that I've seen, and one of them that it has there is Nathan For You, Finding Francis, which
man.
I think is kind of a
Oh my
funny
gosh.
perspective on, like, that kind of could be a little bit of a rom-com between Nathan
totally.
Fielder and the guy who plays Bill Gates, whose name I don't remember. But
Bill.
Bill's his real name, huh? Yeah, I forgot about that.
I can't remember his last name though.
Bill, William
Heath.
Yeah.
Heath, yeah.
Yep. That's a great one, too.
He's awesome. Okay, first of all, before I answer this question, just real quick. February 23rd, 2021, we did an episode called Chick Flicks. I think that's what we were
That's
thinking
why
of.
we're like, what is...
Somewhat similar. There's some difference in the genres
Yeah.
though, but that's
I-
what we did.
Okay, that is...
That's totally correct. So it was a Valentine's Day thing.
It was
Yeah.
a Valentine's Day thing, but it was a separate thing. I feel so much better.
I do
now
too,
That I
yeah, and
found
I'm
that.
like,
I
oh,
just
of
feel
course.
I feel so
So
relieved
relieved.
because I had it in my head that we did it, and I could not think of what it was. So,
Well, and chick
And we've
flicks
just
would
been-
include those like Nicholas Sparks kind of just
Yeah.
romantic.
just the ROMs. Yeah.
But we're not talking about that.
No.
We're talking about movies with Billy Crystal. We're talking about movies with Paul Rudd, Ryan Gosling. You know,
Reese Witherspoon.
No
Reese
doubt.
Witherspoon. The comedic actors of our generation, or your generation, Dad. But
So I will. I kind of already answered the question a little bit. What makes people like these? But I just think that it's very high personal stakes that truly just about everybody can relate to. Like, at least if not having been in love, then wanting to be in love, and that kind of like
that,
and just seeing that and kind of being able to put yourself in that situation a little bit. And it's something that I feel like most of the time is really easy to connect with. And I think that's why they generally have such, I think there's appeal for a lot of people. There's also a lot of people that are like, no, I'm not going to watch a rom-com. But I feel like rom-coms are generally the kind of movie where if it's on and you're watching it, no matter who you are, you're going to get like a little bit sucked in and involved.
You're going to get
and
into
it's just, it's because it's easy to follow and it's easy to relate to. So I think it's just kind of that vibe. It's never super complicated in terms of story to follow. Maybe the relationships are complicated, but like you can just kind of pick up in the middle, go over to a friend's house and they're halfway through a rom-com. And by the end of the scene that was on when you walked in, you're like, yeah, but I gotta find out what's going on. Like
I'm in, yeah.
Yeah.
What's the classic like boyfriend walks in on girlfriend watching the thing, and the boyfriend doesn't sit down, but he stands there for the rest of the movie just like watching it. He's like, no, I'm not watching, but wait, who's this guy?
Or honestly, The Bachelor, like
sure.
that kind of, which I low-key want to put The Bachelor into the rom-com category. Because I feel like
it's romantic and it's hilarious.
Yeah, exactly. So I love watching The Bachelor. I think it's so much fun. That's almost more of a spectator sport, though, where you need to get people together and you need to make commentary. Because if people are just like actually just like watching it quietly, or like if the group that I'm watching it watches an episode without me, I'm not going to watch the one that I missed alone to keep like that sounds miserable. But I do love that kind of romantic type stuff. And even with the Bachelor season that I'm totally making fun of, by the end of it, I'm kind of like a little bit invested and I care about these people. Yeah. And like, so I get really excited about the rom-com type stuff. I want to shout out one. So we already talked about 500 Days of Summer being great. So I won't touch on that one as much, but that's a great one of kind of breaking out of the typical rom-com mold and kind of existing somewhere outside of it while still having that super relatable element.
Yeah.
But the one that I want to bring up, have you guys seen What If with Daniel Radcliffe and Adam Driver?
No,
and I can't remember.
Good Soup one, right? That's what that's from.
That's the nachos. Yeah.
Oh, the nachos one. That's what it is. Yeah.
So Good Soup, I think, might also be from that movie, but I can't remember.
The nachos quote, for those of you who don't know, is it's just Adam Driver sitting at a diner table, and he's like, "I just had sex, and I'm about to have nachos." Right? That's the quote.
That's the quote.
It's pretty awesome. I actually added that movie to my watch list solely because of that scene, because of how
it's
funny
good.
That is.
And
I like Daniel Radcliffe too.
Yeah, I watched it with some friends. Kind of just expecting like, all right, here's another one of these, like whatever, this will be fine. And I really, really liked it. And it was really kind of like artistically done. It almost felt like when they were making it, they were like, we know that probably not a ton of people are going to see this. It isn't the highest budget thing. So we're not going to dump everything into making this like have the widest appeal and be for everybody. They were like, yeah, we're going to make it a little bit artistic and a little bit kind of goofier and weirder. And it plays great. It's a very, very fun movie. Very cute. I need to watch it again because I've only seen it once and I've kind of forgotten a lot of actually the general plot, but I do remember watching it and just loving it the whole time. And it was one of the ones that I liked it so much that this was in my big Letterboxd drought where I wasn't doing any reviews. And I was like, well, I'll get on and log that. Like that was good. And I kind of want other people to know about it. And so I hopped on. So it's a fun one. Bad ones, I can't think of like any real rom-coms that are bad in my, like, at least right now. But I did go through a big phase. I went through a big phase with my friends of watching Hallmark and like Mar Vista movies, those
that's
kind
all
of
those are.
romantic
It's like
comedies.
rom-com type.
We watched so many of them.
Why?
And it's really exciting because they're just poorly made movies.
No. They're just what?
Are those
They're
rom-coms?
poorly made.
Poorly made.
I mean,
yeah.
you
They
can
are
laugh
they
at 'em.
are certainly
You can laugh at 'em,
rom-coms. They try so hard to be funny. And they're not, but they try really hard to be. But it's always like they try hard to be funny in a way that because the joke doesn't land, you're just like, oh, are these people like maybe some of the worst people in the whole world? Like
Where it's like they're just being mean.
yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. But it's interesting. I think in watching a lot of those, I really found a lot of what makes a movie good, what makes a rom-com good at least, which is writing a movie about characters being in love is not enough to actually make you care about the characters.
Yeah.
Love as a concept is something that's extremely relatable, but just love as a concept isn't like, okay, now that this is in the movie, you're gonna enjoy it because you still need to care about the characters and everything. And these movies are made by studios who are making sometimes multiple movies that year for the same holiday.
Oh,
just cranking
Not
them
sometimes,
out.
dude. They make
And-
dozens a year. Like it's
Yeah.
crazy.
and
how many are
and so
made.
if they're coming out every year, that means maximum they have, I would say, 11 and a half months to conceive the movie, write it, film it, edit it, and put it out.
That is exactly the type of movie I predict will be replaced by AI writers, where they're just
Oh,
like, yeah, these
big
writers, we don't even care about them anyway. It already feels like they're written by AI, so those guys are going to be out of their jobs. They should be like,
Because
pump
they
this
are-
generic.
yeah.
They're like, you come up with a basic premise and then put it into ChatGPT, write a 90-minute screenplay about it, and that's it. That's your whole job. Here's $20.
Yeah.
And that'll be the Hallmark movie writers.
But by making movies where love is not the story, it's the situation.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
But the story is what is going on with the characters and their development through all of that. That is what makes a good rom-com, I think. And so if you just want to see a bunch of inverse examples that I actually think are very useful in learning what makes something good, check out any Hallmark and like those
And see
Mar
what it
Vista
shouldn't be.
type
What?
type holiday rom-coms. They are so, and they make them for everything. There was like a St. Patrick's Day one that we watched. Like it's
You
crazy.
watched
There's
so
just
many
one
of
for
these?
every holiday. We watched so many. We watched at least like 10 to 15 of them.
Oh my
No, I
God.
usually don't. I mean, I think there's many activities as long as you're having a good time, good for you.
Mm-hmm.
But that's one of the activities I truly think is a waste of time.
No.
Is watching Hallmark
Well,
movies.
it's not like we sat down and that was the only thing going on. We were like, it was like while we were doing homework, we would toss one on and we would
I see.
Okay,
get
see,
make
that's
fun
fine.
of it.
So
We'd
then,
be
yeah,
working
you're
on
not just
homework.
watching a Hallmark
No, it
movie.
wasn't like, all right, everybody come over. We're going to watch
We're
a
going to watch
Hallmark
12
movie.
Hallmark
No.
movies.
What I think is
No,
funnier
it
in
wasn't
that
that.
scenario.
I
is-
do agree. Just watching
Yeah.
a Hallmark
If
movie
you're
and
watching
having
a
that
Hallmark-
be the activity, big waste of
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Well, I pictured it just Niall inviting his one other male friend over, and it's just like, hey,
man,
let's
what are you
watch this
doing
Hallmark
tonight?
movie, and then they just
Hey,
sit down
man.
on that couch behind.
Do you
us.
want to come over to my house and watch Cornucopia of Love? It's a Thanksgiving-themed romantic comedy by Mar Vista, where the woman works at a photography business, but she needs to go home and take pictures of her hometown. And the man that she loved is now running a horse business, but another man who just moved in is rebuilding the
photographer.
local bar or something, and now
Oh, yeah,
she
he's
has
a-
to
he's an
decide between them. It's just like, this is it's exactly that. You cut out the occupations
I thought
and
you were-
just change them for different occupations. Every single
change
one's
them,
the same.
change the holiday.
Yep.
I thought you were reading something, not gonna lie.
No,
I thought you
no.
were fully reading
I was going
a
off.
synopsis.
I have enough specific memories of these movies that I can just composite a false Hallmark movie into a real thing pretty quick now. It's my useless superpower.
It's your party trick.
Yeah.
Pretty fun.
Yeah.
I think the reason I've been watching more recently is because it's like...
Because you're really lonely.
Because I'm really
you
lonely
are
and I'm just
sad.
like, friggin' give me some fake love via these pixel internet screens. No, because I think like we've kind of talked about, it's just not a genre that we really dive into as often. And so it's almost like binge watching a show where it's like you get into this mindset of, okay, this is the show I'm watching, where this is kind of the genre I've been watching more of. And so it's kind of like that same comforting, like, okay, cool, now let's find another rom-com to watch, which has been kind of fun. And Palm Springs is an example of one that I really love.
Oh, I've
watched
heard great things about it.
When it came out a few years ago, and I liked it all right, and then I just recently rewatched it, and I was into it way more. Andy Samberg is just... I've always loved him, and I just would love him to be in more stuff. He's great in that. He really does a great job. It's interesting, some of the ones that Letterboxd, because it's just, I just sorted it by ones that are romantic and comedy genre tags, and Swiss Army Man is up there as well, which
That's
pretty
kind of is as well.
I think it fits. Yeah,
Totally fits.
Romantic.
And that was a great one
I
too.
love that movie.
Yeah.
Also, while you're talking about Palm Springs, better shout out the OG Groundhog Day,
Groundhog Day. Oh yeah, that's a great
which is
one.
an excellent
really,
romantic
really
comedy.
good. Yeah.
Because I think it's fun too, kind of like we were talking about the subversion of expectations, where this one has like the subversion isn't as much that they don't get together, it's that there's something weird with the plot, which I think is really fun when rom-coms do that as well.
That's the story
could be,
isn't the love. Love is involved in it. That's
Yeah.
a situation that's happening, but the story is this whole other thing.
Exactly. And Groundhog Day, I don't know, I can imagine there were movies that did it before Groundhog Day did it, but has almost created a subgenre of movie entirely, which is just
time loop movies.
time loop movies. Yeah, and I can imagine there were some before, but I think that was the one that really made it like popular.
Yeah.
Because when I think of like a Palm Springs or like a Live Die Repeat, it's like, oh yeah, it does the Groundhog Day thing where you repeat the same day over and over.
It's the weirdest remake ever. Live Die Repeat. Edge
Yeah.
of Tomorrow being like. Honestly, they almost even treated it like a remake, where like they named the female character the same name
As Groundhog Day?
As Groundhog Day. Yeah,
Interesting.
It's the
That
same
is-
character, and like not the same character, but the same name. And
Yeah.
it's not a remake as much as them just being like, yeah, obviously we were
yeah.
inspired by Groundhog Day. It's not like we're coming in here being like, we had this cool original sci-fi idea. They were basically like, well, Groundhog Day. I think I even read a review, or not a review, an interview, where one of the writers was like, well, Groundhog Day is really cool, and it is one theoretical explanation of what's going on away from being a sci-fi movie. But they just don't have that explanation, and so it's not a sci-fi movie. So
Yep.
they were basically like, why don't we just take this and turn it all the way to the opposite end of the scale and make it the sci-fi movie,
lean into the
like
sci-fi.
sci-fi action movie.
And I really like that movie a lot. I think it's great.
It's sick. I
think
like
it's really
it so
cool.
much.
Another one that I just watched is Punch Drunk Love, which is an Adam Sandler one, but Paul Thomas Anderson. So it's one of the few like genuinely just great Adam Sandler movies. He did a great job in it. It's got
Paul
like
Thomas Anderson?
yeah.
Adam Sandler is in a Paul Thomas Anderson movie?
He is in one Paul Thomas Anderson.
That is weird to think about.
Funny, or just fun fact I learned about him as well is he is married to Maya Rudolph. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I
had
did know
I had
about
no
that.
clue
I did not know that.
Yeah, he was just like, I think they met. I think he did an SNL something or other while she was on, and they started dating after that. And he was just like, yeah, she's just the funniest person I've ever met, and so we fell in love, and then we got married.
I feel like,
And it's
Paul Thomas
nice.
Anderson is one of those people of such status that even Maya Rudolph, who is a big name, was probably like, can you believe I'm going out with Paul Thomas Anderson? Like, that's a high status name.
It's pretty
to
cool.
be like dating. It just seems insane to me.
He, I actually really like Paul Thomas Anderson as well, just as a person, because his movies that he makes, you could imagine he is like you could imagine he would be like the most pretentious person alive, but all the interviews I've heard of him, he's just like a chill guy who just likes making movies, and
That's cool.
they just happen to be like the more kind of not even necessarily pretentious, because Punch Drunk Love isn't at all. It's just like
Well,
this
some of them,
weird.
The Master is
The Master,
very
like
pretentious,
Phantom
but
Thread.
very good.
Yeah, and so they're good, but just hearing him in interviews, like for example, this is a true fact. He was interviewing while he was making Licorice Pizza, I think, which was his most recent movie, and he was like, yeah, you know, my kids and I go see movies as much as we can. We just saw Venom 2. That was a lot of fun. And, you know, so he's not a guy. He's just like, you know, an average cinema enjoyer.
That's
Maybe
so
he was
weird to me.
over-exaggerating how
Scorsese.
much he liked it. He's no sort of Scorsese where he's like kind of rags on other, or Tarantino. He's just like, you know, a chill guy. And
Yeah.
his stuff that all of his interviews I've heard with him are really fun. Sorry to go backtrack a little bit, but with Niall and you guys both were talking about this a little bit, but with walking into a rom-com and you kind of get sucked into it, that did happen with Ian. He was watching my roommate Ian Themerton. Shout out Ian Themerton.
Shout out Ian Themerton.
Ten
Shout out
Things-
Pickle Paddle, sponsor
shout out
of
the Pickle
every
Paddle,
episode henceforth.
And he was watching 10 Things I Hate About You.
Nice.
And
a
I
good
sat
one.
down and watched like the last 15 minutes of it with him, and I was like, "Huh, this is good." And then I went on my own a couple weeks later, and watched the whole thing and rewatched the ending, and I was like, "Oh, this makes a lot more sense now that I know
Yeah.
everything that happened before it." And
Sure.
I really liked that one as well. So yeah, that's kind of my question. I guess I didn't say some stinkers. There were a couple that I was looking at where I was like, "Yeah, you know what? I agree." I don't even know if you can technically classify this as a rom-com, but I think this is what he was going for. But with Tommy Wiseau, The Room, I think that he's trying to make a
Hopefully
rom-com.
there
Yeah,
was calm. I thought it was just rom.
No, there's comedic elements, but kind of unintentionally. I think it is unintentional.
But
But
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
it's
I don't know if you can count it as a rom-com
I don't know
for
if you
being
can count it as a-
accidentally funny. You know?
yeah. I'll say that one it's a bad movie. A lot of people love it just for what it is. It's entertaining to
Yeah.
watch, but it's horribly made. He
Right.
just didn't know what he was doing. There's a whole lot. They made a movie about why that movie is silly and bad. Another
That was
one,
quite good.
The Room.
Disaster Artist.
The Disaster Artist is great. Yeah, I really like that movie about why it's bad. But another one that just frustrates me. So there's not a ton of examples of pseudo rom-coms winning Best Picture, but the two that I can think of off the top of my
Shakespeare
head.
in Love.
Exactly. Yep. Shakespeare in Love was the first one I was going to mention,
Yeah,
which
I
I,
don't
think
like that
isn't.
movie.
I think it's fine. Like there are plenty. I think it's way too long and way too pretentious.
It's better on stage, I found out.
I
one
believe
time
it.
By seeing it
I-
on stage and thinking, this is good, and I wasn't expecting it to be, because the movie is dumb.
The movie is dumb, and it aggravates me to no end that it beats Saving Private Ryan for Best Picture. But
you
what
believe
aggravates
that?
me even more is Annie Hall, which I think is a fine movie. It's got its moments, but it beats Star Wars. Star Wars 1,
Yeah.
right? This was Star Wars when it didn't have any whatever bias or whatever you have against Star
no
Wars now.
strings attached.
Imagine it was just one movie, that first Star Wars movie, and it was the most culturally impactful movie of all time. And Annie Hall beat it. A movie that no one has watched since then and only film guys care about. I think
Yeah.
that it's a perfectly fine movie. I actually think it's pretty funny in parts, but I do not think that it is better than Star Wars 1. And that's
Yeah.
not even just me saying that as a guy who loves Star Wars and basically makes his entire personality somewhat based on Star Wars. It's just the fact that it's just not as good of a movie.
Yeah.
So I wish there were more instances or examples of great rom-coms like actually winning or being recognized for Best Picture, but unfortunately the only times really that I can think of are just ones that I did not like that much. So
Yeah.
Sure.
I want to note one more thing. I know that we've basically just ridden on this one question the whole time, but I feel like it's kind of brought up some interesting stuff, so I'm okay with
brought
it.
up good conversation, I think.
I a while ago, I'm not sure if I've talked about this on the podcast. I'm not even sure if I've talked about it with you guys very much, because I kind of dropped off on it. But I asked my dad to send me a list of some of his favorite old movies,
Nice. Yeah, I do remember you saying that.
expecting him to send me 10, 15 movies, something like that. Dude sent me, I haven't counted them, but he sent me in chronological order from 1940 to like 1980 a list of probably about 100 movies, maybe more.
Whoa, that is crazy. In chronological order especially, that's not easy to do.
Yeah, he just went through. He got me so many movies, and I just started watching them from the beginning. And there was one that was called "It Happened One Night," that is kind of like a famous-ish movie. You know, it's no
Yeah, I feel like I may have seen
Casablanca,
it.
but it's
Is that Humphrey Bogart?
yeah, I believe so.
No,
I'll
Frank
have to
Capra.
find-
It's got Clark Gable.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's
Frank
right.
Capra, who also directed. No, he didn't. He directed It's a Wonderful Life. That's what it is.
There we go.
Yep.
The web's all coming together. But in watching all of these old movies, but especially that one, is like I really kind of just realized like, no, these movies, like, comedy really hasn't like changed that much. Like at its very core, what's funny is still funny, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And there were so many moments in this movie where I was just like, no, that's hilarious. Like, that's great. I think that's super funny. And by the end of the movie, the relationship of this man and this woman who had met in this one night on a bus really mattered to me. And I really cared about, you know, what their relationship had become and everything. And I think that, like, rom-coms, we kind of get wrapped up in, you know, the 90s and on, you know, the Meg Ryan, Tom Hanks type rom-coms, which are great, but rom-coms are as old as film, you know, and so there's some great stuff, you know, reaching backward, and I'm excited to keep going on the list. I've definitely fallen apart on it, but I wanna pick that back up and start watching it, because after just watching a couple of those, I was like, no, there's some real solid stuff in here. That quick shout out for old movies right there.
Yeah, so that movie won Best Picture as well, actually. So
okay,
pretty cool about that movie. Also winning Best Picture. Another one that I can't believe I forgot is a movie called The Apartment, which is probably my favorite rom-com, which was made in 1960. It's like, again, sometimes we think, oh yeah, whatever, old movie, and it's got like a kind of suggestive, sensual plot and story, but he does a really good job of, you know, for the times, you weren't going to be explicit, right? And so he does a great job of making it about that without actually saying or showing anything. And it is hilarious. It's like situationally, it's about this guy who lets his bosses use his apartment to have affairs because he wants to advance at the company. And he falls in love with one of the ladies that his boss is having an affair with. And it's so good. It really is. It's hilarious. It's the exact example of just sucking you in immediately, where it's like, oh man, this is like, because I remember watching it with my parents, like, you know, years ago, and thinking, oh, whatever, some old movie my parents like, and then I was immediately like, hey, wow, this is actually, you know, really good. I really love this. And I've since rewatched it, and that one also did win Best Picture. I guess the ones that I could remember off the top of my head were ones that I did not love as much, because I mean, I had a list pulled up in front of me, and those ones were both very present. But The Apartment is one that I love, highly recommend it if you've not seen it. It's just a great comedy in general. So if you're just looking for a good comedy movie, The Apartment would be high up there in terms of recommendation.
Yeah, if we're just talking about some of our favorites, I'll throw one last one in.
Let's hear.
Shrek 2.
Dude, unironically really, great. Yeah.
Really, really great. It's very romantic, and it's really funny.
And it's got a great villain.
It's a good villain. Yeah,
it's got straight up the Aisha and Adam Warlock type vibes.
Yeah,
definitely.
Very good.
So if you're just looking for something like a love that everyone hopes is lasting, really pushed to the limit, and then they kind of spoilers, I guess, for Shrek 2. They do come out on top, right? And love triumphs in the end. So, and that it's just a good message, and I like that one quite a bit.
I was I was worried
not
for
a Best
second.
Picture winner, not a Best Picture winner, which was,
but snubbed
just
for sure.
Snubbed.
Should have been.
Snubbed.
Yeah, definitely should have
Snubbed.
been. We've talked for a long time.
Sorry, I have one more that I want to shout out just real quick.
Yeah, do it, and then Jared.
Sure.
My one that I want to shout out that I just was planning on shouting out earlier was Midnight in Paris. Didn't get a chance
really
to bring it up before because I forgot.
Yeah,
but
that one's great.
Midnight in Paris it's just so sweet, and it really is like, if there's any movie that's just kind of a romantic comedy, you know, but like you don't even think of it that way a little bit. You think of it more as like, oh, it's this movie about this guy who kind of like accidentally slips back in time and is now like hanging out with these, you know, famous writers and painters and stuff. But really, like, you take away just like that context and it's just a romantic comedy, you know, like It's great. I love that movie. It makes me laugh so hard and also makes me emotional every time. It's dang good. Dang good, and I like it.
Yeah, I love it.
The end.
I love it as well. I think it's great.
Yeah, I brought a question.
Let's hear.
This one can be pretty quick. And that is just, like we were saying, a lot of what makes these movies great is the on-camera chemistry between the two lead actors, right?
Yep.
And so I was wondering if you two have a favorite, I guess, combination or just movie where the chemistry is really what's spectacular, right?
Yeah.
Let me go
Or
first.
If they announced another movie and it's like, hey, these two are the two leads, you're like, I'm in.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
I'm going to go first just because I want to make sure that I get my answer out there. I think it's pretty obvious, but Vin Diesel and Michelle Rodriguez just absolutely...
Every time they're on screen together, they look 20 years younger.
They look 20...
can still do the moves. He can still pick her up, and it's not awkward at all.
It's not awkward. They're not old. It doesn't look weird to watch older people.
It doesn't look weird.
Jiggy.
It doesn't look like your parents
Fast X.
jiggy.
I think that was the best example of their... It doesn't remind me of that or make me have to think about that at all. But, gosh, that I would say Fast X really is the one that showcases their love the most because they have to get torn apart early on in the movie. And so the whole time you're just yearning for them to get back together and share screen because you just love seeing them together so much. So much so that when she, spoilers for Fast 4, kind of, when she quote-unquote dies, you can't wait for her to come back in Fast 7. When she does come back in Furious 7, you're just like, oh, finally. These years of longing. Yeah, is it 6? I thought it was teased at the end of 6. Or is it teased at the end of 5?
It's 6. That's the plot of 6.
Oh, yeah, because that's the tank one with Luke Evans. Yeah, of course.
But then it hurts so bad in 8 when Dom has to kind of fight against everybody, and so it's kind of like that betrayal element is really tough on them. But then, it's just great. The great performances.
But like seeing in 10 when really, they finally have a life established together. They're raising a kid together, man.
It's so
just love triumphs.
Love triumphs.
I'm scared for part 2.
I hope they all survived. I'm really scared about them maybe not ever getting back together.
Yeah, it could be rough. So. I wanna go in and snake my answer real quick.
Yeah,
this is a power duo. Power duo that has done so many movies. I already brought him up, but Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan.
Nice.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where one movie happened and all of the studios were like, all right, well, there's the chemistry we're looking for. And they made like a bunch of other ones. And I don't know if all of them are good. I know that You've Got Mail and I think Sleepless in Seattle is both of them.
That's both of them as well.
And Joe versus the Volcano is the other one I'm thinking of.
Right.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, you guys know that one.
Probably. But
that's just another one with the two of them.
I don't know that one, but they are total power duo. And I really just Tom Hanks is older now and he's not in the romantic comedy world anymore. He's in the feel good world, I guess now. But wow, young Tom Hanks was just great at the rom-com thing. And so mainly him. I need to watch those movies again because he's what I remember because I watched them as a little kid and I was like, I'm only going to pay attention to the cool guy that I want to be. But I got to go back and watch Meg Ryan and get a feel for her, vibes again. But they're great.
I think she will always be the queen of romantic comedies.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
She's
no
just
doubt.
so iconic. And if you look at her IMDb or Letterboxd, whatever her most viewed, highest rated, popular films, they're all rom-coms.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Tom Hanks' first big movie, Big, is kind of a little bit of a rom-com too. I mean, it's totally a rom-com actually, but again with a little bit of that more science fiction-y type plot, but he's trying to get the girl. With regards to your question, Jared, I think these two don't always appear in rom-coms together, but when they do appear, their chemistry is dynamite, baby, and that is Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson. I
They do have great
on-screen chemistry. That's
chemistry,
true.
yeah.
those two have been in 11 movies together so far, and I just recently rewatched Zoolander 1, which I love. I think
Electric.
I love it.
and they do great. They're
that
so
chemistry,
good
dude.
together. Because they do have a little bit of that tension at first, and that worked great. But then once they get together and they start teaming up and doing all that stuff, it's so funny. There's some genuinely just hilarious stuff they do in that, and their characters in that are so dumb, and it just works so well for that movie. And all the other ones, like I've seen them in as well, have worked great too. And I just want to watch them in more. Like they're both in Royal Tenenbaums together as well. They don't have as much screen time in that, but that's like a great movie that they're in together. And I want to watch stuff like Starsky and Hutch, where they're both the main characters.
Dude, that movie. Have you not seen Starsky and
I
Hutch?
haven't, no. It's
Oh,
Todd Phillips, though,
it's
director
so
of Joker 2019. So I do
didn't
want to
know
watch
that.
It's got to be good.
it. Yeah, it's got to be good.
Joker
that is one that
Folia,
is on my list. And so, yeah, I think those two work great. Yeah, Jared, what about you?
Yeah, I'll say I think my favorite chemistry between two actors in any rom-com has been in The Proposal, Sandra Bullock and
That was a surprisingly
Ryan
good.
Reynolds.
Yeah, they worked great.
That's a
They-
good answer.
And maybe it's, I mean, they're both just hilarious and charismatic on their own. And so watching them play off of each other, it works super well. And I've really never wanted a relationship to work out as much as that one in that movie.
Yeah.
And so that's probably my number one. But also, I guess, we love to see Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling
Of course,
together.
yeah, that's...
Right. I mean, they're just...
They're great.
They're just
Everything-
cute.
yeah,
They're
I
cute.
love them.
And they're funny, and they're fun.
I would love to see
So-
another movie with them together
Yeah.
as the
Likewise.
romantic leads. One last shout out with Tom Hanks. Robin Wright, I think, works really well in Forrest Gump. That's not as much of a... It has comedic elements, but she's also the co-star in Princess Bride with Carrie Elwes, and I think she does great in both of those.
Yeah.
Princess Bride is
And Princess Bride is another great one.
Great
Oh, yeah.
rom-com.
Again, kind of subverting the genre a little bit, but making it really engaging and interesting and good as a result.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love it.
Cool.
Well,
I'm good on... I mean, did anyone have any other questions or things they want to talk
No.
about? I thought this was very fun.
I'm glad that we ran
Yeah.
so long because I didn't come up with a question. And before the episode, when we talked about questions, I just didn't say anything and nobody said anything about it.
Well, I figured
so-
you would just pull one out.
Yeah, and it
At
worked.
the
I
end.
think it worked
Yeah.
out.
I'm
I
just
think
glad that we didn't need to.
We filled the hour. I think the questions that I had and Jared had all worked great. And I think
Yeah.
I wanna shout out a YouTube video really quick
Let's
that
hear it.
is kind of interesting on the same topic. A guy that I like on YouTube, his name's Scott Kramer. He has a video. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's basically who is the best rom-com boy, and he goes through all of like the men in different rom-com movies, and he kind of stats out their strengths and weaknesses, what makes them appealing, what kind of makes them off-putting, and he lands at the end of his video on the perfect rom-com boy, meaning just the most evenly balanced, is Mark Ruffalo.
Oh,
Because-
Hey, there you go.
He has kind
like
of the
13
dweeby
going
feeling
on
to
30.
him. He's attractive enough, but he isn't like so hot that he couldn't exist in the real
Yeah,
world.
exactly.
And like,
Sure.
he just kind of seems like a normal guy
Yeah.
in his rom-com, era at least. And so he just kind of goes through and talks about all of these different guys, and it's very funny and
That's fun.
worth watching. So
Well, I think a lot of times these episodes turn into us. Let's list as many rom-coms that
let's
we
just-
know.
who can
Yeah,
list the
like,
most, who
can list
wins.
them? Yeah.
Because, yeah, there's plenty of good movies out there.
Who
and
has
we even talked
seen
about
the
some
most
stinkers.
movies?
Who's seen the most?
Who has seen the
As
most relevant movies for
many.
the episode? Yeah,
Yeah, Joe versus the volcano.
Yeah, that
right,
was a big
guys?
flex.
That was a big one. That was a big flex.
I also
Uh,
looked it up. There's only 3. Those are the 3, and Jared knew the
He knew
missing
all
puzzle
3, yeah.
piece.
Well, yeah, happy to be there, boys. But take this as, if you want some recommendations. We just talked about a ton. You can start marathoning them like Lucas has been.
Yep.
And
It's fun.
If you don't like rom-coms, there's a list of ones to stay away from.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure
Because
you
those
can
are
look
the
up.
most rom-commy of all.
Yep.
Great. Well, thank you very much for listening. I think this was a little bit of a different topic for us, but I thought it was fun. And I'm glad we remembered that Chick-fil-A...
A little bit of a different topic for us.
we remembered that it has happened. It was different enough. I feel like this was different enough content that it'll be... And that was so long ago. It's nice
Probably.
to maybe
Let's
revisit.
listen back to the thing. I guarantee you that Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan come up.
Probably.
Sure.
Probably.
From me, because I'm obsessed
La La
with
Land surely comes up.
Yep.
Oh, no doubt.
La La
No
Land
doubt.
definitely comes up.
But that was like, what, 2 years ago? Is that what you said? Over 2 years ago?
years ago?
It was, yeah.
We're different men
We're
now.
totally
We're different,
different. I would still not even call myself a man. I'm just a boy. But
We're different boys.
we're different boys. We're the orange boys. We're different orange boys in that we're 2 years older, but I don't know if we're 2 years wiser or more mature. But we have
years
seen
stronger.
more
Physically.
romantic comedies since then.
Yes,
and
sure.
that's why we were able to do this episode. And we appreciate your listening. Please give us a follow on Instagram if you've got the time. We post infrequently there, but whenever there's a new episode, you'll get the notification there. And if you want to support the podcast, we do have a Patreon now, which does have content. We are planning on doing one per week, just like we do regularly with our episodes. We'll do a bonus episode every week as well. But you're not missing out on our regularly scheduled episodes if you don't. But we would support it. And if you love the podcast as much as we love making it, we would appreciate you subscribing. You can do that on Patreon for $3 or on Spotify for $3 a month. So if you've got a few bucks you can spare, we would love it. We're just going to use it to help promote the podcast and build it from there. And with that, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you on another Man Cave Movie Night Monday.
Mwah.
Goodbye and bazinga.
Hello, everyone. Our shout-outs from... Frick, no.
And
no.
just say,
I'm doing a
and
different
also...
thing. No. I got it. Just
Okay.
give me a sec. When you subscribe to our Patreon, that means that you are also giving a shout-out to my mother, Kel. Our shout-outs right now are simply coming from myself and Hannah Steed. So, from Hannah Steed and from Niall Thorley, shout-out to Kel.
And if you
Love you,
subscribe,
Mom.
you get to shout her out too every week. We'll shout you out and we'll shout her out. So thank you again, and we'll see you next week. And one other final quick shout out to our good friend who just subscribed, Ian Martin, also known as Ian Themerton.